Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to Serving Up Success with a Splash. I'm Dr. Nawtej Dosanjh. I'm very kindly called the Strategy Doctor. And joining me are my two very favorite co-hosts.
Angie Snowball, Renaissance woman.
Bruce Kramer, your one and only corporate cockroach.
Why do I always laugh? It just makes me giggle when Bruce introduces himself. It's hilarious. It's fantastic. Never stop doing that, Bruce. Even when you're really old, never stop doing that because it makes me laugh. The rest of my day with absolute joy. This week, guys, we have a topic, and we have been talking about this ourselves, haven't we? We've been talking about navigating culture through Hofstede's lenses, his 6 dimensions of culture. That's our topic. But as usual, first, let us talk about our cocktail. So I'm so happy it's winter, or close to winter, coming up to winter now, because I can start very soon drinking winter cocktails like mulled wine. But this week, it is Winter Pimm's cocktail. And this involves some fabulous ingredients, some of which you can use in mulled wine. A little bit of 100 grams of brown sugar, 1 star anise, a cinnamon stick. How can you ever go wrong with a cinnamon stick? 4 cloves, equally, water. Okay, we have to add some water. A lemon, 2 clementines, 150 milliliters of Cointreau. Cointreau is one of my favorite liqueurs. I love Cointreau so much. Cointreau reminds me of jazz, everybody. And why does it remind me of jazz? Because for some reason, when I go to a jazz club, that's all I ever drink is Cointreau. Who knows why? And then we add a bottle and a half, bottle and a quarter of a light red wine, I don't know, such as a Beaujolais or a cheaper Pinot. And we just mix this all up. And this gives us a wonderful, wonderful Winter Pimm's cocktail. Are you guys going to try this winter?
No.
No.
I saw it like, no, not going to do that.
No. Okay.
I do like mulled wines. But
which part of this cocktail don't you like, though?
I just don't like the mix of those things.
You don't like that? Okay.
Yeah, like everything individually would be fine. I just don't like that. Like, it would be too much for me.
And corporate cockroach, what do you think?
Well, I don't like to dilute my booze.
Same.
Although this is a fairly interesting mix. It is tasty, but I refuse to put foreign objects like cinnamon sticks and stuff into my, it would become dangerous. Although I do have my safety glasses on, I still don't.
Do you not put cinnamon cloves in your pies? Apple pie? Do you not put cinnamon in?
He won't put leaves in his drinks. Well, he won't put anything in his drinks. He'll eat stuff, but he won't drink it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know something? Look. If it's turned into a conflict about our cocktails, let's get on with the show in hand. I'm really looking forward to this, and I know you two are too, and I hope our viewers and our listeners are too. We've talked a lot about culture, haven't we? But we've done it deliberately without too much structure. We've alluded to it. And there are so many ways to talk about culture. And I know that Angie in a future episode is going to talk about culture in yet another way. But what we're doing this week is we're going to unpack Geert Hofstede's 6 dimensions of culture. Hofstede, his framework is one of the most influential frameworks for understanding how culture shapes behavior, leadership, and organizations. And what do we always talk about? We talk about behavior, leadership, and organizations in life, in business, and career. So really valuable topic. Guys, before we start, can I pose a question to you guys?
Sure.
Already?
Well, you don't have to answer it, but just as a sort of question to contextualize the topic we're going to talk about, why do negotiations often break down between teams from different countries or even different parts of the same country? Why do they break down? My answer, it's a rhetorical question. My answer is because they haven't looked at the 6 dimensions of culture and they've misunderstood each other. Okay?
I think they
This
don't know how to
will,
apply it because a lot of
there,
these people teach that stuff and it's so academic, doesn't make any sense, bored reading it. I sat through a bunch of those things before I was like, this is dumb. And then I finally met some people and I was able to say like, oh, I get that. And I read some other things that like make it more relatable. But I think that's what happens is these big corporations put you in these academic things and give you these stuff. I'm like, I don't really give a crap about, it doesn't make any sense. And if you don't have any motivation to do it and you don't have any real life examples, it's really hard for most people to integrate and implement these ideas.
well, let's see if the three of us can do that over the next 30 minutes. Let's see if we can do something about that.
Bruce is going to do it.
Everybody, if you're a leader, if you're or if you're a trainer, or if you're a student, early career professional, if you're in HR, this is a must for you. And I am going to start. We're only going to talk about 3 of the 6 today. We'll talk about the other 3 in another episode. I'm going to hand over to my co-host, Bruce Kramer, to introduce and talk about the first of these dimensions. Bruce.
Oh my. I gotta tell you, so like everybody knows, we do not operate with a script. We are given the topic. And I'll be honest, I had such a strong reaction to this, and I don't know why. But this is the first time I've been exposed to his 6 dimensions of culture. Because as Angie pointed out, there's been a lot written and taught on culture. But I found this very polarizing. And I choose that term on purpose. So, for instance, as Dr. D has indicated, the first dimension that I get to introduce out of the 6 is individualism versus collectivism. And think about that. So right away, my mind, and by the way, the definition, and I want to provide this, is the extent to which people prioritize personal goals versus group loyalty. And I thought, boy, that's a pretty crisp definition. And as they point out, that typically the US and the UK would fall into those individualistic cultures where, a lot of attention is on the individual. More of the collectivist cultures exist like in Japan and China. And it was interesting because when I read that definition and the thing individualism versus collectivism, I literally went to that. I literally started thinking of, oh, I know where this is headed. And again, even though we talked about it across countries, this happens within organizations. Different organizations take on a particular culture. Then the second thing that upset me by this dimension and the way he frames the 6th dimension, individualism versus collectivism. And the first thing in my mind is, this is the problem. None of
100% agree.
none of these are good or bad. They only become bad when you think of, I've got to be an individualist or I've got to be a collectivist. The reality is you need both. There needs to be balance. Any one of these on their own, in my opinion, fails.
Absolutely.
If you're all individuals or you're all collectivism. So let me explain that, and then I got a question. One question for Angie and one question for Dr. D. Like they talk about the individualistic culture fosters innovation, accountability, personal initiative. You're going to get shit done. And yes, there may be a little bit of competition, and in my book, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, on the collectivist side, you're talking about teamwork, loyalty, and harmony. Well, how can you argue against that? The team is always much stronger than the individual, all right? But if you were to take those alone, if you were strictly operating under the individualism, there's a good chance that it's going to lead to unhealthy competition where it's win-lose versus win-win. That's not good. And isolation. Because if you operate alone, you're going to end up alone. And so, but then when I looked at the collective, if we're all sitting around kumbaya in harmony, there ain't
Yeah,
shit
yeah.
going to get done. So what struck me was what I ended up loving about these 6 dimensions, now that I got over all of the personal angst it created for me, was that what he's really trying to say, there is no right or wrong, you need balance. And as we've pointed out in prior episodes, just about in every subject matter we talk about, balance, 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 balance. And so my first question goes to Angie.
Ooh, okay, I'm ready.
Okay, Angie. You
I got a
better,
drink.
do it,
I got a
Angie.
strong drink.
How can organizations balance the need for collaboration with the need for individual recognition?
Well, I think that is easy. You recognize them in two different ways, right? So I also found that so interesting that, I mean, plotting against is ridiculous because nobody has one or the other, even your own self. There are times you do things for yourself, there are times you do things for the better of everybody else in the group. And I don't think there's very few humans that aren't that way, except people who are real. I don't know, bad word, bad word, bad word. See, I held my tongue. But those people are out for themselves. But in general, I think everybody, to certain degrees, does these things. So when you're in an organization, you need to make sure simple promotions is one thing that's going to make people be a little competitive and step up to be leaders, because you're going to get promoted to be the manager or the director or the vice president. That's one thing you're doing, is having a hierarchy in your company. And I don't care what anybody says, there has to have some hierarchy, because you have to have some organization, some structure, because structure leads to accountability. And without accountability, it's just going to be chaos. Collectively, that's where you have, in America, we go overboard, right? We have donut days and pizza parties, and you win this, and you get to go to the zoo and whatever because you win the party. But we do that stuff, right? And that's your team did well, or recognizing your team at the end of year gala or something like that. But recognizing your team, and also you as a team will get newer projects, you'll get the better things. So you're also competing as a team while you're competing as an individual. But I think recognition of both of those things individually is important to keep them both healthy in an organization.
Damn.
Great,
Damn.
great,
That was,
great answer.
well,
Great answer. I
Dr.
mean, she
D.
sounded, I've got to say, Bruce, she sounded rehearsed, but I know she didn't know the question
No, I
beforehand.
know.
Yeah.
I know. But
I,
that's
yeah, and it was a
Angie.
tough question. And it was a tough
I'm
question. It's
just
not
really
like
proud I didn't
you
say bad words this time.
did say
It
So
bad
took me
words,
a
but you
minute.
said bad word. You did. You said it. I heard you.
So to you, Dr. D, one last question, and then I'll shut up and
Yeah,
turn it over to Angie. But what, and she kind of alluded to this. That's the thing about
yeah,
Angie. She steals the thunder.
yeah. She did.
I love it. I love
Bruce,
doing it.
I
It's what
had
I
a
set out to
what
massive.
do. I'm an
what are
Can you
some
stop?
individualist, not a
strategies?
Can you
collectivist.
stop talking until the
All
end of the
right.
show? You know
All
why?
right.
Because you're just stealing
So
everything.
what strategies, Dr. D, can you think of or have thought of that help bridge that gap between the individualistic and the collectivist mindset in global teams? Because you've had a lot of
Wow.
experience working around the world. What are some strategies that can be employed to bridge the gap? Because as Angie pointed out, you need both.
You know something? If I didn't know that you hadn't, or Russ, you sound as the words you used. You sound as though you were the professor talking to the class. Seriously, how do you bridge the gap? Oh my God, those are the words that are used. How do you bridge the gap? Yeah, totally. Look, I'm going to answer that in a minute, but the first thing I want to say is I love working with you guys. The fact that you just say what you think, and it's not boring, we're not going through the motions, you are just so honest. The second thing I want to say is that I would say the two of you are the perfect balance between being individualistic and supporting your team members. I
Oh, good
always feel
job,
in my
Bruce.
interactions, I always think in my interactions that you guys are, of course, you're individualistic to a certain degree, but you put the team ahead. You put the three of us as a team ahead of your individual requirements, and that gets me to answering your question, Bruce, and that about bridging the gap. the first thing, it's not a competition. There's a continuum. So the way Hofstede did, I'm not going to go into this in detail, but the way Hofstede did this, he gave scores across a continuum of 0 to 100. So most cultures are not zero, or there are no cultures that are 0 or 100 or extreme. They're verging towards the middle. But you hit the nail on the head. The question, because of what you said, Bruce, the question almost doesn't need answering. Bridging the gap. You said, how do you bridge the gap? By bridging the gap. Do some work about understanding that somebody might have a slightly, and it usually is only a slightly different way of doing things than you. That's how you bridge the gap. Do the work. Stuff that you two, and if I can say immodestly, I do all the time. We're always trying to bridge the gap by understanding people around us. The question was better than my answer. Thank you, Bruce.
All right, Angie, it's your turn with the discipline.
Okay, Angie, knock it out of the park.
So they gave me masculine versus feminine, and for all my feminist friends out there, this dude was born in 1928 and he would 100% be canceled. So we're just going to go with the terminology that he has. It's not male, female, it's actually so outdated. But the concept is, sorry, Bruce, the culture emphasizes achievement and competition is the masculine part. I can see some of my friends like literally pulling their hair right now. Versus care and quality of life and cooperation is the feminine part. Now, to be honest, I do think there are things that are true in male and female personalities that tend to go that way. But I mean, we got transgenders and all kinds of stuff going on right now, so this would totally be out the window. I think what we really need to focus on, though, is not the terminology of it. It's more there are cultures that are more competitive, and there are cultures that are more empathy related, more about the emotions of what you're doing. And that's why I really like, there's this another book, The Culture Map. Nawtej and I talked about it. Erin Meyer does this.
Yeah.
And she does it she takes some of Hofstede stuff, and then she takes some of CQ. She takes a lot of different models, but she puts it into the things we do. So like she has 8 disciplines that are communication, decision making, persuasion, and then she has this scale. And everybody's kind of like little X's on a scale that says you tend to be like communication, direct, indirect. And then you'll have like the Germans are over here on the direct side, but our Russians are even further. Or the Americans are here on indirect, but the other people, Japanese reading the air, are way over here. So I think anything we talk about, there's this line and this transgression of generalizations as well. I know people get angry when we talk about culture because like, I know a German who's not like that. Well, so do I. So everybody's a different person, right? And also, culture changes. I mean, our culture did a major shift in 2020. But I know that even I worked with a guy named Uwe in Belgium, and he was a German guy. And he was so funny because he was trying to be more the feminine side of things. He was trying to be empathetic. He was trying to listen. But in because he's about 40 years older than me. I was at the beginning, he was at the end of his career. His German culture then was, do what I say, you are this, you do this, you do this. And I was like, I don't care, Uwe. And he was like, why? And he'd go crazy. I'm like, that's not how it works. So he'd get all nuts. So culture also, they think these things are evolving and changing because now I worked with Germans that have a completely different personality than Uwe did. So I think we need to think about the competitive side and the cooperation side. It's very similar to the individualism or collectivism, right? Like, are we doing it for ourselves, competitive? Are we doing it for the group, being cooperative and understanding? I think we need to think about those more as a sliding scale instead of versus. So my question then is
to Bruce, right? To Bruce, Angie. To Bruce. Yeah.
No,
make it to Bruce.
I was going to go to you first.
Okay, now your way, Angie.
Awesome.
Bruce gave some awesome questions, and they really made me think about, what would be most important for people to hear. And I think a really good question is people do have cultures that are too competitive. They're very competitive, so they struggle making that team work together. That's why people like me and you, honestly, you guys, we all have jobs, because we come in and do team building, trust building exercises, and try to bring in this feminist side of things. But if you, outside of the obvious, hiring coaches to do these activities, what advice would you give someone who's running an organization where the culture is very competitive, too masculine, and they need to be able to be more cooperative? That's for you, Nawtej. You pick
Thank
the
you.
topic, you get the question.
Thank you so much for that question, Andy. I'm so pleased to have that question. Fabulous, fabulous question. You've answered it in part by bringing in coaches, but I think I've got some other things. I think team collaboration. I've been involved in organisations that were very individualistic, very competitive, and very pushy, and so on and so forth. But every 3 months we'd have some sort of team collaboration time. Like we'd all travel to a particular a country, and there'd certainly be three or four. There'd be one in January, there'd be one in June, and there'd be one in September, and that would be a large number of people getting involved in collaborative exercises, but fun collaborative exercises, like an obstacle course on a beach, where the team that won was the team that collaborated most. We had to get a load of heavy duty equipment from one end of the beach to the other, and the team that won was the team that collaborated to do that well. And in fact, it was the chief operating, or it was the operating officers, and it was the operators that did that. They had sort of understood operations, so they formed a line where they just passed the heavy duty equipment along the line to one end of the beach to the other, and they won. Whereas, people like me were running up and down the beach in 30-degree heat and getting tired and being totally outclassed by these guys. But again, I agree with you that there's not, and Hofstede meant it this way, although he, the use of the word versus, there's a continuum. Most people do not have entirely masculine characteristics or feminine characteristics. There shouldn't be a confusion between what is masculine and male. They're two different things, and what's feminine and female. They're two different things. Men, Bruce and I, have very cooperative, what Hofstede would call feminine characteristics, but we're men.
Yeah.
So I think that's my answer, and I'm rambling, but I'm enjoying
Thanks
rambling.
for sharing
And
that last bit.
I'm thinking maybe I'll stop rambling now.
No, that was good. And again, yeah, it just goes back to, I just like to highlight what Nawtej said, that it's all meant to be a sliding scale. And that in general, especially because I know that some people, when we dive into things just at the surface, they'll go out and Google what we're talking about and try to find the rest of it. So I wanted to let everybody know that, some of this is just outdated terminologies. It's just a different way of thinking. But the base underneath it, all these culture models, whichever one you choose, they're generally the same things. They just come in different ways of organizing, different ways of explaining type of things. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But yes, Nawtej. Okay, Bruce, are you ready? And this is because I was going to ask you something else, but you already started this one. So, because you said nothing's bad or good, right, earlier. You're like, it shouldn't be versus. But I think it's also important, like many of the things we talk about in many episodes, what can we learn from each other? So what can people on the more masculine side of the personality scale, culture scale, what can they learn from people that are more on the feminist side of things, and vice versa? Because that's really where understanding culture is valuable. That's why we do it, because we want to learn from each other so that we can work better together and be more productive and effective. So what can they learn from each other?
And I'm going to just say, here's what I learned. And I think it applies to the majority, is that I grew up in a very male dominated industry, but thank God the organization I was with understood the need to evolve and that there is a better way. And so, having come from, and I still use this on occasion, show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. Um, that doesn't tip the hand that I'm a bit competitive. But in a career that I had pointed out in a prior episode when we talked about work-life balance, how I kind of crashed, what I learned is by embracing, for lack of a better term, the femininity of culture, life got much better. Working in terms of with people that understood the importance of having empathy, to really try to seek to understand another person's, because you never know what everybody's going through, or what their current crisis might be. Having that temperament, the ability to embrace more collaboration, and not slow down. I want to be clear, but just having that breath of fresh air about putting more on work-life balance actually made everybody more effective. Because we came from a very competitive, very goal-oriented, we're going to take the hill at all costs. And trust me, there were costs that were paid. Deficits were born in our personal lives. And when we start embracing work-life, equality, really try to better understand, everything got better. My life got better. I became more effective at work. I went from being an asshole to a teddy bear in some cases. But it was more effective because, yes, empathy was being overlooked because you were so charged at taking the hill that at sometimes you did it at the expense of others. And that's just not healthy, certainly for the others that you may have ran over, but even for yourself it wasn't healthy. So I think, the bottom line is life became better when you embrace both sides of that equation, the masculine as well as, if you can find that balance, your life is far more balanced and more effective. That's how I would answer that. And I don't even know if I answered the
No,
question.
you totally answered that. I think that was really good. And I think you also touched on a whole new topic, the evolution of leadership. Because it has changed. Even since I started, and when these last 30 years I've been in the workforce, of how much it's changed from that, and it culturally as well. I remember a German guy that was working in the United States. He had this little sign on his door, and it said, "Don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions." Well, the old school German way would be like, "I don't want to hear your opinion at all. This is what you're going to do. This is what I told you to do at the end."
Right?
Yeah, so this other German guy, older guy, visits him, and he reads on the door, and he's translating, English isn't great, he's translating, and he finally goes, "What the frog?" We'll say, "What the frog?" But the guy was like, "I don't understand what's happening here." So I think that's interesting, too, that it's changed, that stuff has evolved, as you said, the leaders. Okay, Nawtej, take us into the last one we're going to
I
do.
will, but I just want to say, Bruce, did you notice that Angie and we did not interrupt you? Did you notice that?
Yeah.
We did not. And can we tell you why we didn't interrupt you? It wasn't a secret pact that we had designed so much for. Do you know why? Your answer was so good
Perfect.
that I just wanted you to carry on talking, bro. It was just so good.
It really
It
was.
was amazing.
Yeah, I
And
was making
all
notes about another
wow.
episode.
Oh my God, yeah.
Good job, Bruce.
I'm glad this thing is recorded. I'm getting so much from you two. It's all free consulting. Thank you so much. And everybody else listening out there, subscribe. Bruce and Angie, and to sometimes me, we're giving you free consulting.
Yeah,
What's
true.
the love?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pay us to do this.
We do not have a lot of time, thank God. Because now it's me. I'm going to talk about another one of his dimensions, and that is something called indulgence and restraint. So what do we mean by that? It's the desire to engage in activities which are super enjoyable, social activities, personal contact, against activities which are suppressing or people are hiding from engaging in those things. So again, as Angie and Bruce have pointed out, there's a continuum. As you may have guessed, Bruce, Angie, and I are on one extreme end of the continuum. We are indulgent. We love to enjoy ourselves. We love to have a drink. We have a different drink every week. We're drinking too early in the day. Some of us, with the three of us, and we enjoy each other's company. We've been for dinner, and we have to travel from different parts of the world to have dinner together, and so we enjoy that. But on the other hand, there would be people, and I don't really even want to talk about it as a culture. It's just people. There are people who wouldn't like that. They would just like to have a restrained view about. They would just like to think about work as something that they do to perform, and then they go home to a different type of life. And so, it's, as I said, there's a continuum. But I suppose my question, it's a question to both of you, because I've got two questions to both of you. But my first question to both of you is, how do people like us who indulge in good things? We have joy. Joy is one of our values. How do people like us understand and appreciate people who don't do that? How are we going to do that? Do we do that? How do we do that? Do we want to do that? Or do we want to just not engage with people who are indulgent? What do you think? Angie, you first, because I saw you nodding and I thought, she's got something to say.
The funny part is I was going to give it to Bruce because I think Bruce answers this all the time. One of the things I love so much about Bruce is so many things we talk about, he comes down to we have to agree to disagree. And I think that is a really great answer to this question is I will never understand someone who chooses to go home and read a book over someone who wants to go to the bar and dance on tables. I'll never understand that. But I have come to accept the fact that that's okay. I'm still going to do what I want to do, and I would hope you don't judge me for doing what I do, and I'm not going to judge you for doing what you do. It brings you joy. That makes me happy for you. So I think a non-judgment zone and just agree to disagree. One of my very best friends, and I know she listens, so I won't say her name because she is someone who's totally not like me. I couldn't live my life without her. I need her balance. And she will go places with me that I know are not her favorite. But then we also have great quiet dinners that I need because it's a serious, good relationship that is deep. It's a deep relationship. So I think you need that in your life, and it's important to agree to disagree, not judge, and respect each other. And that really comes from Bruce, because Bruce says it all the time. So you can answer.
Bruce, you have to say something different now. Tell us what Angie would normally say, Bruce, because she's probably your words. Can you tell us what Angie might say?
Well, I had a hard time with the two terms used here, indulgence and restraint, because to me, if I go to it's fun versus discipline, and that's what you're a person that likes to have fun, or you're a person that's extremely disciplined. You can be both.
Yeah.
You can be both. And so when I looked at these dimensions, especially this one, I had a real problem with the way, but what was interesting is his disciplines are feeding what his intent is, that you do arrive at, you can be both. And to me, if I have anybody that's on one side of the continuum, because I like Dr. D, this idea of this continuum, if I ran into a person on any one of the three dimensions we talked about that was stuck on one all the way to 100, I'd choose not to be with them. Period. I'm not going to expose myself to that. And I think, that's something we have to start thinking about, is that typically nobody's one or the other. To your point, we're much closer than we think. But on
Yeah.
that occasion, if you got somebody you're going to end up in jail with, probably want to call it a night. Trust me, that's my personal experience.
Is that,
And it
is
is
that,
from personal.
would that be classed
Or
as restraint or indulgence though?
if you
Somebody's
got
going to end up in
somebody
jail.
that never enjoys life, get them out of your life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
so it's
It's funny. I feel like
to
we switched
everybody's point.
personalities for this question.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just,
You know,
Someone's like, get out of here.
life
for
is
all
a
those
choice,
for all
but
those listening in, I just want to say, Bruce and Angie are not involved in some Twilight Zone sci-fi drama where they've swapped personalities. It's a one-off. It'll never happen again. If you've missed it, you've missed it. It will never happen again.
so that's my answer.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay, so I don't have time to ask my second question, but I'm gonna wrap it in with the key takeaway. Key takeaway. Okay, so what would be your key takeaway, Bruce, for me and Angie? Not for yourself. What's your key takeaway to give to me and Angie? Angie, the same question is coming to you for me and
Okay.
Bruce. So not yourself. What's your key takeaway to give to me and Angie?
Well, if you're going to be successful in navigating culture, you can't be one or the other in any of these dimensions. You have to move to the center.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that. You can't be one or the other, but you can be more one way and more one the other way during certain times and certain situations. So I think that's important to understand too.
I stand
Okay.
corrected.
I agreed with you. I piggybacked.
Yeah, it's sort of a bit. You two are in a weird, futuristic movie. You
It's
two
your
are,
damn drink.
Yeah.
yeah.
Where's your drink?
So my key takeaway, and it's not a new revelation. It's one that I've had ever since I met you guys. I just love working with you guys because here's a topic that you two didn't you want to do. It seems I didn't know this until we started. They didn't want to.
But we didn't do it. We didn't understand it.
But but you guys, no, seriously, I've learned so much from what you guys have said. You guys have knocked it out of the park. Seriously, you were so amazing. So my key takeaway is to do more things that you two don't like. That's my key takeaway.
Fantastic.
I'm going to
Love
learn
you,
more.
friends.
But anyway, listen, I'm going to leave it this week to Angie to say the goodbyes on our behalf. Angie, over to you for the final word.
Well, we just want to thank everybody, as always, for listening to us. We'd love for you to like and subscribe and tell your friends. We've got a lot more things coming up. I was at a party this weekend. Everybody had ideas. Well, why don't you email us? Why don't you text us? Give us your ideas before you're drunk and tell us your ideas. We want to tell you things you want to hear. So give us your ideas, and until next week, thank you so much. Serving up success with the Splash wouldn't be who we are without you. Cheers!
Cheers!
Cheers. Bye bye.